mic?
There's a mic, I just don't see where to
plug it in.
For electric? The mic.
For electric?
The mic. I mean, I see the mic, I don't know where to plug it in too. There's a mic too, I don't know where to plug it in.
Maybe it's in the Aron Kodesh?
Electric, I see. Electric is gonna...
You don't need electric.
We need the input.
I'm gonna put it in here meanwhile. Somebody must know.
That doesn't look like the right thing. That's a regular inbox. That's usually he has these kinds.
He has another.
That's for a portable speaker.
This is actually. So where does it go? Is it here? No. Who knows? Is this the right mic though? Okay. Is it connected yet? Just, if you don't mind, you can just let me know when it's connected. I'm just in the middle of it. I don't know of any.
Noch nicht.
There or not?
Maybe half the rep.
There's no switch on the mic.
Doesn't necessarily have to have one.
You didn't answer. You found it?
What's in there? What's over here? The internet?
What are you looking for?
No, is it plugged into, right?
Yeah, but
It's working?
You didn't know.
Let's go. Okay.
Yaakov's car?
Yeah, be in a second.
I'll find my seat.
I think it's plugged in, right?
Plug in?
Could be in the closet. There's the volume.
That would make sense.
You said you wanted him to introduce the program. Yeah, no, I said, talking more. Oh, take a deep breath, okay, so I will wait till she This is 5. This is 5. 510. 450 to 5. Oh. So you start.
First, as a way of introduction, I want to thank again Horav Dwek, who as many, many years in the past has taken the initiative to organize these drushes on Tisha B'Av, and it's a tremendous chizuk for the Olam. We have very special speakers that we're going to introduce, and we appreciate very much all his work and his input, and all the chizuk and aliyah that we get from these drushes should be a schus for Horav Dwek and his family, and should lead us to a gula shleim b'mheira. The Gemara in Yuma says, Migdash Rishon ne'ma Horav, the first base of Migdash was Horav, ne'shloisha dvarim, avay dezara gil arayis shrichas damim. The Gimel Chamurais led to the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. We all know the Gemara says Migdash Sheni, Shaya Oiskim B'Tayru Mitzvahs, Ugemilas Chasadim. Seems to be they were tzaddikim. They were Mekayim the Torah. Ma Charav, Ne'sha'isa by Sinas Chinam. The famous Gemara, the Gemara even observes, Olamedcha Sheshkula Sinas Chinam Keneged Sholosh Averis Avad Dezar Gil Arayis Shrichas Dam. The Chayr of the Gemara is a Pella. Is Sinas Chinam really Shkula? Is it really an equal Avera to Gil Arayis Shrichas Dam Avad Dezar? The Gimel Chamuras are Chayvim Krisus, Chayvim Mises Bezdin. They have a din of Yarg Val Yavar. Sinas Chinam. It's not a nice thing, but it's a lav. Loisisnas Achicha B'Levecha. It's a lav shein by Maisa, and not even Malchus. It's not as chomer as the Gimel Chamuras. How could the Gemara say Shkula Sinas Chinam? I mean, the Gemara is observing that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of it, and we're still in Galus because of it. The Yerushalmi on this Gemara says the famous Maimer called Darshal in Beis Hamikdash Nidma B'Yamav Kilu Necher B'Yamav. So obviously it's a very, very chomedik thing. But what's pshat? It's not as chomer as the Gimel Chamuras. There's a Gran Shir Hashirim who's speaking about Pashas Truma, Kol Ish Hashidvenu Libai Tichas Trumasi. Why is it that the Nidvas HaMishkan had to be the Nidvas HaLev? Anyone that fundraises, no, you get a check, you cash it. Doesn't matter what the person's kavan is. Why here it said Kol Ish Hashidvenu Libai Dafka? The Goyin says, "V'osuli migdash shachanti b'saycham HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shechina cannot rest in a house. It cannot be in a place. The only place the Shechina could be is b'saycham, is in Khal Yisrael. And who in Khal Yisrael? Me? You? No. The Shechina can only be shaykhin in all the levaves of Khal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is a klal. The heart of all of Klal Yisrael is a place where the Shechina could be shaira. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a place that was a collection of all the levavis of Klal Yisrael. So he said, make a mishkan, kol ish hashi yidvenu libai. He put his heart into the mishkan. So the mishkan was a place, teichei rotzuf hava minayis Yerushalayim, It was lined with the Avos Hashem from Klal Yisrael, with the Levites, the hearts of Klal Yisrael and Mela. There could be Shechina there. If that's true, it's understandable that when there's period levavos, it's not a punishment for the aver of sinas chinam. Sinas chinam is not as chomer as gimel chomeres. But there can't be hashras shechina if there's no ichud levavos of Klal Yisrael, because there's nowhere for the shechina to go. The shechina can only be if the levavos of Klal Yisrael are together in a mishkan, in a Beis Hamikdash. And when there's sinas chinam, it destroyed the connection of all the hearts of Klal Yisrael, and the shechina had to leave. I just want to share a machshava I had, maybe practical also. What's pshat sinas chinam? Sinas chinam is translated as baseless hatred. Well, you're walking down the street on Shabbos, and you're in a good mood, and maybe you came from out of town, so you pass a yid that you don't know on the street, and you say, Good Shabbos. And New York, it's not there, it's done. You say, Good Shabbos. The guy turns to you and says, Get out of here. Excuse me? I said Good Shabbos. He says, Get away from me, I hate you. He says, You hate me? You never even met me. I don't even know you. I just take a Shabbos. There's no such thing as sinas chinam. No one hates someone for no reason. If you never met a person, he says, Stam, I hate you. I don't think that's what the Gemara means, sinas chinam. You're walking down, you're in shul on the same Shabbos, and you're not looking where you're going, and you step on someone's toe. Ouch! The guy's upset. Maybe you did it on purpose even, or you weren't careful. So he turns to you and says, You stepped on my toe. I said, Yeah, I'm sorry. He says, You should die a misa meshuna, and your body should be thrown to the dogs, and you should brenn a gehenim, loylam vod. Excuse me. I stepped on your toe, but I mean, that's not so bad, right? Take it easy. 5%, when someone stepped on my toe, it's understandable. It's valid that I should be upset at him. The 95% that I'm mad, I want him to die, I want him to suffer, that's sinas chinam. Sinas chinam is when you have a siba to hate someone, to not get along with someone, to be upset at someone. But it's just a little siba. You disagree with him. You disagree with his hashkafas, maybe with his yiras shamayim. You don't like certain things about him. Okay, maybe you have a taina, 5%. But to say I hate you, I can't sit down and speak to you, I can't do a chesed for you, I can't say anything nice when I'm asked about shidduchim for you, that's sinas chinam. A little bit, you could be upset. But the 95% exaggeration, that's sinas chinam. That's what destroyed the ichud levavos of Klal Yisrael. People had kindness, but when you exaggerate it, and it gets out of control, that chelik is the sinas chinam. The Sfarim say the earliest I found was from Cheskel Mikuzmir, Chassidish Gadol. So the Gemara says the siba of the Churban Beis Hamikdash was sinas chinam, so the tikkun is avas chinam. What's avas chinam? And I believe it's the same thing. Avas chinam, stam azay, stam I love you. Why should I love you? I have nothing with you. But avas chinam means there's something to like about everybody. Everyone has some maila. He's a Tzelem Elikim. He's a Yid. He has something something good. Avas chinam is exaggerated. Make it from 5% to 95%. Look at the good in other people. The Pasuk the Navi says, Oyavim Nadava. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us as a Nadava. We deserve the Rebbeinu Shalom's Ahava. I have a lot of problems. But the Rebbeinu Shalom looks, I'm a Yid, I'm a Tzelem Elokim. Sometimes I do a mitzvah. Sometimes I learn some Torah. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Oyavim Nadava, he exaggerates, he multiplies it, he magnifies it. He says, my children, my Banim, my Khal Yisrael, when we get along with each other, just the Tzelem Elokim, just a Yid, just for something good about him. And you make some Avas Chinam, you exaggerate it, just like you created the Sinas Chinam by exaggerating the Chesaron, that will bring the Levavos of Klal Yisrael together again. We'll have a tikkun to the Sinas Chinam. All the hearts of Klal Yisrael will be able to come together and once again be a makam. Fashas hashchina v'asu li migdash v'shachanti b'soicham b'zoichet to the Gula Shleim v'meher b'yameinu amen.
I want to say, Yeshayach to the Mor Asra for his achnosis orchim, for hosting this program. Esh olam emenu man eloshen. I ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give me the right words. Baruch Hashem, we have our next speaker. So Horav Simcha Bunim Cohen is here, and he's scheduled to speak now. You can always have betachon, everything works out.
Shus the Mor Asher Shlita, Hashem Yarech Yom V'Shnoisav, Shus Rabbi Dwek Shlita. Gemara says in Masechtas Gittin as follows: Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Mai Dechsiv. This is what it says, a posik. Ashrei Odom Afachat Tamid. Praiseworthy is a person that always says pachad. Umak Shaliboy, in somebody who has a hard heart, Yipul Bero, he'll fall in evil. And then the Gemara says the famous story of Akamsa Bakamsa Chorav Yerushalayim. The Gemara says the whole story, what happened. Akamsa wanted to stay by the Suda, and then embarrassed him, and they kicked him out. And he went to the Caesar, to the Roman Emperor, and he told him what happened. And because of that, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Because of that, Maisa, what happened? The Gemara says because of sinas chinam. Rashi speaks out, Rabbi Yochanan said, they should have been afraid that Bakamsa was going to do what he did. Rashi says, Pshat, Mipachad doyeg lidis hanoilid. They should have sown the noilid, shaloi ta'er takola bekach em esazois. If they're going to kick out Bakamsa, they should have realized that maybe Bakamsa was going to go tattletale on him, and it's going to come a whole bilbul, and boom. Taisus adds some words. Why didn't they make this cheshbon? Why didn't they make this calculation? So Taisus says, Shabotchu al roiv toivosam, v'shal vosam. They were beteach, they relied. Things were going well for them. And when a person is at peace with himself, he thinks he's on top of the world, then you can be mavaya somebody, you can do whatever you want. Fragt Rav Steinman, the größer Rosh Yeshiva Zichron Levracha. From the Gemara's mashma, the Gemara says openly that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam. And Tosfos is mashma, and from the Gemara, the way Tosfos is learning pshat, it's mashma that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because they should have made a cheshbon. And why didn't they make this cheshbon, this calculation? Because they were beteach, they relied, things were going their way they wanted to go. So make up your mind, was it because of sinas chinam, or because of roiv toivosim, or because they were beteach, and their good fortune, things were going the way they wanted? As they fragt the Heilige Rosh Yeshiva Reb Leib Steinem in Zichron Levracha. And he says, they should have made such a cheshbon that this Bar Kamsa is going to go do such a low act, go tattletale on Klal Yisrael to the Roman Emperor and make a mum a korban, the whole, this is what they should have made a cheshbon. In other words, the question is it because of sinas chinam, or because they were beteach, beroiv, they were beteich, they relied, things were going good? So you think, when you're too comfortable with yourself, we forget we're in Golus. In Europe, they never forgot they were in Golus. Today, the Eibishter is reminding us pretty often that we're in Golus. But when we take over neighborhoods, and we build the way we want, and we do what we want, we also forget, sagt Rav Steinman, to a certain extent that we're in Golus. So he wants to say, Gavaldige Yisoid. He says as follows, and he answers the question is like this. He says, Tam sinas chinam, the reason of sinas chinam, v'hodoloi pochtu, they weren't afraid that what's going to come out of their actions is all one reason. Ki kisha'odam margish, listen to the words of the Heilige Rosh Yeshiva Zichron Levracha. Kisha'odam margish, when a person feels, Toishiv kavua ba'olam hazeh, I have permanence over here. This is my place. V'lohi mispoil, he's not mispoil. V'lohi choishish al maisav, he's not so careful about his actions. I'm here. U'bekoyach zeh, mit this koyach he boyet. V'yochel avayesh anoshim, and he's capable of shaming people. V'imkein, divrei Reb Yochanan, the words of Reb Yochanan, einem stira, is not a contradiction. Beina tvia sinas chinam lebein divrei Reb Yochanan. Shloi choshvu, they didn't think what the ma'asim are going to do because they were too comfortable. And when you're too comfortable, you do things but you wouldn't do if you were uncomfortable. And he says as follows. If a person knows, Shaboid kamer goyim, Yochel nifka boy haro, midas adin could be pegay on you, could just jump onto you. Im sheyachla, you get sick. Oy sheyaz of odem chasha sholom, that the Eibishter could take you away from the world. Hoy yechoyshev acheres legamri, a person thinks totally different. V'lo hoy boyet v'shalva kolkach, he wouldn't be so comfortable with himself. I'm so comfortable, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. They wouldn't do what they want to do because we're not so kavua, we're not so betuach. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? And that's what's happening lately. People are getting heart attacks. Listen to these words of the Heilige Rabbi Shal Yisrael. We see, unfortunately, kamat kol yoim shebnei odom machmana litzlan. B'chol meaning gzeirish mishunis are happening. Ubnei odom mesoynim b'tzar, we give it kerechts. Oy ma hoy alone kol kach har b'tzar, so much misfortunes are happening. Mesapin zeh lezeh, and we tell it to each other, beroiv tzar. Ach loy reinu, not me talking, Rav Steinman talking. Sheyeh masu mishu sheneshtana mashu beruchnis machmazeh. Are we changing in ruchnis? Are we getting a closer relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Before we do something, do we ask, is the Eibishter maskim, before you undertake it to do something, you want to do something lavish, you want to go to Italy, you want to go to Austria, you want to go here, you want to go here. Do you ask, is the Eibishter maskim? And if he's not maskim, as long as you made the cheshbon, is also epi something worth. But who makes a cheshbon? Anybody make a cheshbon? Reb Shimshon Pincus, if his children testify in the 3 weeks, if they mentioned where they're going on vacation, he lost it. And he was the most friendliest man around. He was a tzaddik yesod olam in his own right. Today, everything is about Shabbos Nachamu. Where are you going, Shabbos Nachamu? What happened? Are we so calm? Did the churban go away? Did our problems go away? We're living in a tkufa which we never lived since B'riyas Olam Yesh Ma'ayin. I'll tell you a story what happened 45 years ago, 46 years ago. I was standing in the living room of the Ram Shokol B'nai HaGoyler of Moshe Feinstein, Zichron Levrach. And somehow he told me a statement as follows. He says, I hope to live, he spoke only Yiddish, Moshe didn't know English. He didn't want to know English. As brilliant as he was a genius upon genius, English he didn't know. A few words, but he couldn't converse in English. So he tells me he hopes to live till Mashiach. Okay. So I was a youngster. I don't know today if I would have it, but I was friendly like I was, Anyway, I asked him if he has proof that I'll live till Mashiach. And he opened up his blue eyes. I'll never forget it, like yesterday. And he says, yeah, he has proof. So I asked him, Rosh Hashiva, what's your proof? So he told me as follows. How many Yidden do you know in this generation who could paskin Dald Chelkel Shanarach on the spot and write a tshuva on any Inyan? I told him I know only one, Rabbi Feinstein. He says, Oy Bazoy, if that's the case, I have to live till Mashiach. He was nifter, so we were left with Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Reb Yosef Sholem Elyashiv for the Torah world. And the Sephardic world had Chacham Avadia. Today there is no central posik in America where every Ben Torah will accept his psak as psak. We never had this in the history of Khal Yisrael. That there's no one voice in America where with paskin mutter, osa, osa. We never had this yet. The Chassidish world had till recently Reb Shmuel Wozner. We don't have that either today. The Chassidim alone tell me we don't have the posik hado no more. There is no posik hado. There's a lot of Talmidei Chachamim, don't get me wrong, in Mitzvahs, but nobody ever wrote on. But one voice, that there should be one psak, that the Rosh Hashiva paskind, we don't have no more like this already. And this alone breaks us, our heart, that there's no. So what happens? We hear the tzaras, and he asked like this, not me asking, so don't get insulted, it's the holy Rosh Hashiva. He says, did he do more mitzvahs? Did he put on film better? Did he lower down his gashmius intake? As I sagte. And then he says as follows, a frightening statement. We read as follows in Eichel last night. We read as follows. The Novi Yirmiyahu came. Now what do we want Mashiach for? I want to ask you people a question. We want Mashiach. We want the Nevi'im. Why do we want the Nevi'im for? Because the Nevi'im came and gave us rebuke. They told us what our problems were. Today, every Rav has to be so careful what to say and how to say it. What kind of business is this? Mashiach, we want the Nevi'im back. We want to fix our blemishes so we shouldn't have to come back again to this world. And Navi was a pleasure. I'll tell you a story what happened. I was once talking to Moshe Feinstein about something. So he asked me, how many friends do you have? So I told him about 20. So he asked me a second time, how many friends do you have? I told him, 20. When he asked me the third time, I asked him, I told him, if the Rosh Yeshiva is asking the same question 3 times, must be you want to teach me something. What do you want to teach me? So he asked me, what's the definition of a friend? So I told him, I was smart enough to say, if the Rosh Yeshiva will tell me, I'll know. And he said, you know what a friend is? Ready for this? If you, it's all in Yiddish, I'm saying it in English. If you come late to daven, and he doesn't sleep at night because you missed a Menya Ishmael Abba, and he feels bad that you lost a little Olam Haba. How many do you have like that? I told him nobody. He says, das heißt an emes achava. A tata mama lose sleep at night when the kids are not are going in the way they want they should go. Kenei l'chachava means a loshi yochid. He says, pay money for somebody to give you your rebuke. Versteht sich, self-understood, it should be nicely given. But that's the best friend. You see somebody stumbling in his ruchnius before he falls totally down. You see a person come late every single day to davening. If you go over to him, you say nicely, maybe what's the problem? Maybe we could work out a solution. He won't talk to you again. Instead of giving you money for the suggestion that you came over to him, he gets insulted. And that's what's going to be when Mashiach comes. Do we want Mashiach? Do we want Mashiach? Do we want the Navi banging on our door? The Navi came to the door and said, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. We're interested in the Navi. Let's be honest with ourselves on Tisha B'Av. Do we want it? Do we want Aliyah and Ruchnius? Do we want to become better? Are we satisfied? Go read about the Tzadikei Hador. The Chassam Sofer writes, Inyan Godel L'Sape B'Shvachim Shel Tzadikim. Why? Because you become better. It motivates you to become better. Do you know that the Sarah Toiri Rabbi Yosef Shalom Eliasher was nifta 12 years ago, by 102. By 101, not 102, he got up Tisha B'Av by night like he used to get up 2:15 in the morning. He started to say kinnis. He said kinnis till he went to daven at 6:30. That's about 4 hours, a little less than 4 hours. Then he said kinnis in shul, where he left off. Then he came home and he finished 3 o'clock in the afternoon kinnis. That was the Sarah Torah at 101. So we have to ask ourselves on Tisha B'Av, are we yearning for Teichacha? Are we yearning for it? Let's ask ourselves. Let's be honest with our Kadosh Baruch Hu. And if we're not, then we'll ask Hashem, help us. So I just want to end off with Rav Steinman said, a pelodik of word, but you got to be Rav Steinman to say it. The Gemara says in Moed Katan that at 4 things you got to rice kriya, and you can't mend the garment. Chas v'sholom, if a person loses his father or mother, he rips the garment and he can't repair it. The Gemara says on a Sefer Torah, and the Gemara learns it out. That's not negaya, but this is what's not negaya to us. The Navi came to the king and told him as follows: Eicha Yoshva Boded. The people are going to sit. Eicha Yoshva Boded. How is it that she sits in solitude? So the king said, Ano Malka. It's not going to. It doesn't affect me. Then he said the second pasuk, Bachai Sifka Balayla. So they said, the king said, nothing to do with me. Go see Yehuda Me'ayni. Third pasuk in the first parak in Eicha. He said it has nothing to do with me. Dariket si in Avelos. Mibli bo moed. The king said, Ano Malka. Nothing to do with me. Hoyetzerel Aroish. You're going to lose your kingdom. Then he said, let's take all the Eibishter's names and throw it into the fire. Dr. Steinman the following. When the king heard that it's something that's going to hurt him, then he took it serious. Al kol panim royim izeh, eichu hateva shel ben adam. Had a yehokum lohoya hoicha grush yesh ban. He wasn't the worst guy around. B'chol zoish kishashomes kol atzoros. When he heard all the tzoros, hu nisha b'shaloi ano malka, ma zeh negei alai. What is this relevant to me? B'chol oid. Shloi hirgis Yehokim es inyin achurb na atzmoi. As long as he didn't hear the churban about himself, lo yafriya loy. Loy churban beis hamikdash, not all the people who got killed. Rak, when it hit him between the eyeballs, then he got busy. Anachnu, Dr. Rosh Hashiva, I'm reading you his words, so don't blame me. Anachnu bebchina misayemes chelik godel ma'atziba al mamish like this. Royim mamish yoim yoim. Now I'm not telling Kaisrael is great. There's nothing like us. But we need this oiris on Tisha B'Av. Mashiach still didn't come, and we're still in Golas, and it ain't getting better. Chelik godel ma'atziba royim mamish yoim yoim pegua. A bullet here, a bullet here. To unis drachem kan, car accidents. Kan erge kol kach harba noshim v'noshim. V'chein amoyim ptsuim. Injuries. Ze gam kein lo kach poshet. Yesh ptsuim, there's injuries. What people are paralyzed half of their body. Kol minei tzoris. Abel zah kol klum. Lama, why doesn't it affect us? I won't use you. Ano malka. Kol echad oy meliloi negeya. It's not negeya to me. Rak shoma. Yes, zekora v'zekora. Yeah. And as Yisrael in the north, wherever they are, they got to run into shelters. I don't have to run when I'm sitting Shabbos Nachman by my table. So I could go party like nothing happened. We're hoping the whole world, Sprint of Steinman says, brennt a fire. America is on fire. You don't even realize how choyme it is, America now. This is what Rabbi Vigda testified 50 years ago. It was happening today. Everybody knows what happened with Mr. Trump. They almost shot him as I side. This is, they didn't, the whole system knew about it and they didn't care. That means the highest, one of the highest ex-president and a candidate for presidency, it's becoming hefke de gas. The whole world is one burning fire, Dr. Steinman. Abel noshim yoidim, she yoidim lishmoya. So it doesn't talk to us. But the few people what know, they know oil and boya. The world is burning. It's a fire. And how could we take off the sreifa? B'toira of gemilas chasodim. B'toira, learning Torah, gemilas chasodim. Let the Eivish have rachmanis in us. We have tremendous amount of Torah. People are finishing Shas left and right. In Europe, we didn't have this. They didn't have them art schools with the Mesiftas, so people couldn't learn. But they had Yiddish Shemayim, genuine Yiddish Shemayim. We have to have Yiddish Shemayim, but we're stuck, Rabbi Merling Shlita. We can't talk about punishment today because we're living in a door of only positive, 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 positive. If you say something about punishment, I was walking with Rabbi Vigda once, so he had a lot of Zdarim on his walks. So I asked him if I could take part. So for 7 minutes I was able to take part, and then I could walk next to him, but I couldn't talk to him. He was chazering. What's the difference what he did? He said the first minute, he said, let's say in Yiddish. He only spoke Yiddish to me. I came to this world to get to the next world, Olam Habo. Okay, I was able to say that for a minute. Then he say this with me. I'm afraid of Gehenna. Say that. So for 30 seconds I said it. After that, this didn't come out. He says, you think if you're not going to talk about it, you're not going to go there? On the contrary, if you'll talk about it, there's a chance you won't go there. I want to ask Rabbi Merling Shlita, the Heilige Rav, and Rabbi Dwek, if I want to make a Shabbaton, if today's all Shabbatons, and I want to talk about two subjects, Gehenna and Olam Haba. How many participants are we going to have? We're very shvachador. We dug our own grave. We can't talk anything strong today, anything that's a little tough. It has to come out of love, but we can't talk about punishment today. And we dug our own grave, Kamat. Manasa, what should we do? The Eibush said, Rachmanas and Khal Yisrael. We're yearning for the Geula. We're yearning to get out of his golas. We want to live like Rabbi Yashav lived. We want to live like the Tzaddik Hador lived. A Ruchni is dik alive. Let the Eibishter Rachmanish be zeicher to Malach Mashiach still today.
We learned in Eiche today, Nepach le'evel mecholenu, that our dancing was turned into Evel. On Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah in Eretz Yisrael, 1,200 people were butchered. Never since the Yeshaia, since the Holocaust, is such a terrible one day happened. 250 were taken captive. 80,000 people today are homeless in the north, in the south. And 333 soldiers got killed almost every day, another korban. Napach le'evel mecholenu. And it's been said, Marsha says, that the 3 weeks are 22 days. From Shavas B'Tammuz to Tisha B'Av, Marsha says that from Rosh Hashanah until Shmini Atzeres is also 22 days. 22nd day of the 3 weeks is today, Tisha B'Av, and the 22nd day of Yomim Noraim is Shmini Atzeres. And it's been said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Rishoim, my former Arab neighbors, that they turned our Shmini Atzeres into a Tisha B'Av Be'ez Hashem. We, each of us, through our tears, through our tefillas, will turn into Tisha B'Av, into a Simchas Torah. We had this chus, Rabbi Tasyo Salman Alav Shalom used to speak in Deal every Tisha B'Av. We had a program like this for many years. And he always repeated a Yavitz, and I repeat it. We have to remember it. It's a major message. He says, El Mole Elohaya, I quote, El Mole Elohaya la'avon zeh b'yadeinu she'em mis'ablam al Yerushalayim karoi. Person has no averis, never mavatal Torah, never spoke Lashon Hara, never had sinas chinem, perfect, except one avera. And that Aver is he was not Mesabel al Yerushalayim Ka'aroi. One Avera, perfect in every other way. We're not Mesabel Yerushalayim Ka'aroi. Dai leharech galuseinu. Vehi be'eina yasibe kreva yaser geluya atzuma v'chazaka lechol hashmados. Hamaflagos hagedolos hanoros hamavihilos harayonim asher motzuunu begaluseinu bechol mekomos pezureinu atzavarenu nerdafnu lahu nachnalnu largia begoyim im shefloseinu. All these stories, all the pogroms in the Spanish Inquisition and the Holocaust, it was before the Holocaust, and all the terrible blood libels. We never were able to relax. Why? Because sheyotza evel halal halazim levavenu. We got used to golas. Kameis melev nishkachnu. We forgot Yerushalayim. Shachachna Yerushalayim velo alsa levavenu. Medor ledor have more tzaras. Everybody who believes the emes would be moideh. As you see, especially Yom Amar, Tisha B'Av, who is misabel, who is really krachzing al chorban abayis. Memama kalev, how many tears are spilled? I like to emphasize the positive. If the lack of avelis and the lack of crying cause all the tzaras, including the most recent ones, the Midya Tova HaKadosh Baruch Hu is meruba memidis paranus. And if we do cry, and if we are misabel, and if we really mean it, and it's into us, it's in the bones, then it's 500 times the Midya Tova HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And some say, one medrash says 700 times that our tears and our crying and our hisablus, and not to decide that Tisha B'Av is over tonight and take a deep breath. It's over, now I can enjoy. But to keep it going, 50 days from tonight is Rosh Hashanah. And the ganze tefillah on Rosh Hashanah is Simcha le'artzecha sosa le'irecha v'chein tzadikim yiru ve'yismachu v'timloich. And the Zohar HaKadosh says if a person at Rosh Hashanah, the Rav mentioned it, would say, give me life, give me geld. And the Zohar HaKadosh, not my words, the Zohar HaKadosh's words says, we're like dogs, hab. A person who doesn't have a proper Tisha B'Av, doesn't have a proper Rosh Hashanah, and I believe it's a Siftei Chaim or Friedlander who says you can accomplish on Tisha B'Av not less than Yom Kippur. We have to take it to heart. We have to appreciate what we could do for Mashiach to come. We should not say that, who am I to bring Mashiach? And Mesilas Yesharim Perkutez says, person should not say, who am I to bring about Kibbutz Galuyos because of me. That's falsha anova. Person has to say, B'shvili nivra ha'olam. And I could do it, not by myself, but on top of all the other people. David HaMelech says, Sima demosi ben oidecha halo be'sifro asecha. Kadosh Baruch Hu has a barrel of tears that it's been filling and filling, and maybe all we need is a few more tears. And so Rabbi Scheinerman writes, you look at the Kaisel, the big stones were built years ago, now we just have to add a little bit. You want to write a Sefer Torah, you're not a Sefer, you hire a Sefer, and you finish the last letter. And maybe all that's needed of us is to finish those few letters. Samchenu be'binyana v'hara'enu be'tikuna, the Gera Rebbe says. What does it mean, be'binyana and tikuna? The Beis HaMikdash is going to come from the Shamayim, but it's going to be missing the Koisel HaMaravi. It's going to be missing the gates that David HaMelech built. It says the Sha'arim of David HaMelech, Tovu Ba'aresh Sha'areha, so the Beis HaMikdash is going to be missing those things. And we're going to be misakin and put it in. And we're going to make this seem Sefer Torah, but a person should not say, who am I? It's interesting, Tisha B'Av was the Meraglim, the first tragedy was the Meraglim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, B'midbar Hazeh, they're going to finish in this world, B'sham Yamusu. He forgave us for the Egel. He forgave us for the Egel. V'yamiru es kevaydam. With the shor Oichel Esev, they built a holy cow at Har Sinai and worshiped that cow. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm Moichel, not easy mechila, doiris, but he was Moichel. But the Meraglim, no. Why is the Meraglim worse than Tisha B'Av? I heard from Rabbi Shapiro, Miami. Averis, no matter how serious, it can be forgiven. But a person who says, V'nehi be'eneinu k'chagovim v'chein ayinu be'eneim, Rashi says, they said we're like Nemolim. They looked at the giants and said, we cannot do it. A person who's miyush, there's nothing you could do for him. Nothing you could do for him. And if a person inside is miyush, what could I do for Mashiach? What could I do? Who am I? Falsha anova. And then memele, every tefillah we say for Mashiach is mesofa v'lachutz, just words. V'fatuhu v'fihem u'v'lsheina michaz mulai. We seduce Hashem with our mouth, and we lie to Him with our tongues. A pasuk. Ve'libam l'nachon ima ve'lo nemnu ve'vrisai. We don't mean it. Ve'urachum yechaper ova ve'lo yashchis. Every night we say ve'urachum, and we forget the pasuk before. We have to mean it. We have to believe we have to undo the oven of meraglim. Atem bechisem b'chia shel chinam. They cried for no reason. We have to cry all the years for 1956 years. It's not an oynesh, it's a tikkun. They gave up, but we're not going to give up. We're going to do our work. We're going to finish the job. We're going to fill that barrel. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda HaNosi, Heilig Rabbi Yehuda HaNosi, the Maxhaber of the Mishnah, lived 120 years, and the Gemara tells us that he used to come every Leil Shabbos to make Kiddush. Every Leil Shabbos, until his Oma told some children, don't make noise, Rebbe is here. He said it's going to be Meforsim. It may cast some embarrass other tzaddikim, he stopped coming. Imagine a Yid who could come to make Kiddush every Leil Shabbos. And Rebbe said the reason of his madrega is because Shara'isi Rab Meir Me'achoyrev. I saw Rab Meir, I sat in the shir behind Rab Meir. And if I sat in front of Rab Meir, I would have been much greater. So if we have an idea, who could have an idea? But if we have a little bit of an idea who Rabbeinu HaKodesh was, we can imagine Rab Meir was even greater. And if we have an imagination of Rab Meir Baal HaNes, then imagine his Rebbe, the greatness of the Rebbe of Rabbi Yehuda HaNosi, Elisha ben Avuya. Elisha ben Avuya. Arba nichnesu lapardes. 4 people went up to the Shamayim and came back, Ben Azai, Ben Zaymer, Rabbi Kiva, and Elisha Acher. And Elisha Acher became an apikoris in the Shamayim. Rabbi Yerucham Lvovitz says, Rabbi Elazar ben Durdia went to his Zaina and she told him something and he did tshuva, was looking to do the right thing. Elisha Acher went to the Shamayim and became an apikoris. And we're off the derech with the Zaina Khal Shabbos. So hundreds of years later, Rabbi Yehuda started crying. He says, what's going to be with me? If Elisha ben Avuya can go off the derech, who knows what's going to be with me? And the Gemara says in Chagiga, his Rebbe Shmuel told him, Shinona, smart one, don't worry. Elisha Acher and people like him, Tina Haisa Belibam, Rashi says, are Rishoim from the beginning. Rishoim from the beginning. Imagine the power of the Torah of Elisha Acher, that after he died, they couldn't put him in Gehenna because of the Torah. Until Rabbi Meir davened that he should go into Gehenna. And Rabbi Yechanan came, so 160 years later, stopped the Gehenna. He went to 160 years to Gehenna. But the Torah of Elisha Acher did not protect him because he was a Rasha. Rashi says, well, what was, the Gemara says, what was the Rishis? Zemer Yovani lo pasuk mepume. He always sang Greek songs. All right, Greek song is not a good thing, but the Torah he learned. The Kedusha, the ability to go up to the Shamayim. I mean, Greek songs are not great, but how bad is that? Rashi says he should have stopped singing because of the Chorban. You don't think of the Chorban, you're a Acher, you're an Anderer. From the foundation is a Rasha. You're into yourself. You don't care about Kodesh Baruch Hu. I tell every Chosin and Kala when I'm under the chuppah, daven for Mashiach. The Yavit says the reason there are no some families, no Shalom Bayis, because they don't care about the Shalom, the Bayis of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You worry about your house. What about his house? Whether a person is Misabel al Yerushalayim, whether he thinks of Yerushalayim, 6 brachas we say in Shmoneh Esrei. Do we say it Mesofa V'lachutz, or do we mean it? Every time we say Shema Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu mentions it in this week's Parsha, every day we say Shema Yisrael, means bring Mashiach. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Bayom Ahu Yeh Hashem Echad. We've been davening for it, and a person who does it Mesofa V'lachutz is a different type of a Yid. You look at a person, he's not Shomer Shabbos. It's a different type of a Yid. A person who's not Mechake Mitzape is missing a treasure. is missing all the brachas that comes. Hashem says, you care about my house, I'll take care of your house. It's so a short story. A young girl came to a jewelry store, and she liked a necklace on display. She asked the merchant, is that a real necklace? It is real gold, the merchant confirmed. Could I see it? The merchant knew that the young girl could not afford to buy the necklace. Nevertheless, he didn't mind doing her a favor and gave her the necklace to hold. Her eyes lit up. How much does it cost? A lot of money. Too much for a young girl like yourself, the merchant replied. I want to buy it, she said. I have money. She opened up her purse and took out $7.80. Startled by her determination, the merchant asked, why do you want the necklace so much? She replied, our mother died last year, and I and my sisters are orphans, and my older sister takes care of us. Today's her birthday, and I know she'll be happy, very happy to get this necklace. I want to buy it for her. And the merchant says, but it costs a lot more than $7.80. I'm sorry. I have nothing in the store for that amount of money. Hearing that, the girl began to cry and cry. The merchant's heart broke for this girl and her family and her orphan sisters. You can have the necklace, the merchant said, accepting the $7.80 as payment. Later that day, the older sister came to the store. Did my younger sister buy this necklace in your store today? Yes. How much did it cost? Merchant explained, my store doesn't have set prices. I quote a price, and the customer says a price. We negotiate until we settle on a price. Your sister negotiated well, very well, and she convinced me to sell it for less. And the story concludes, we tell the story to demonstrate the power of tears. Tears touch the heart. When there are tears, you want to say, yes, Kavyochel, something similar happens in the Shamayim before Hashem. The Arizal says one who doesn't cry on Yomim Noraim, his neshama is sick. There's been something on my heart for many years, and I think it's a mitzvah to talk about it. A big mitzvah. I had the schus of being with the Rav, with other Rabbanim from Lakewood, Shabbos before last, and I spoke about it to Rav Eli Brudny. He told me I could say that he agrees. There's a tremendous fruma yetzer hara. I've been hearing it all the years I've been teaching. I've been denouncing it. I've been telling everybody the yetzer hara is a genius. Melech zoken uchsil, he makes us idiots. Imagine a woman who is a mechaneches, lives in a basement with a whole bunch of kids, drives a 20-year-old car, and she talks from her heart. And she comes in a classroom and tells the children, you want Mashiach? Who says you're going to be alive when Mashiach comes? Only 10% are going to be alive. I don't know if you've heard it, but I've heard it. I've been teaching for many years regularly in Makkah, Medina, all over. You want Mashiach? Who says you're going to be alive? Soif davar akol nishma. Then when Mashiach comes, they're going to announce all your averis. You want Mashiach? Do tshuva. And this is going to get the students, the seminary students to do tshuva. And I tell them, I guarantee you that you're going to be there when Mashiach comes. If Mashiach doesn't come from girls and boys, who's he going to come to? For the reform, for the conservatives? Who's it going to come to? I don't know if you've heard it. I've heard it regularly. And it's mamish, the yetzer hara has taken away from us. The mitzvah is to believe in Mashiach. And the Rambam says one who doesn't believe in Mashiach, or eino mitzape, doesn't wait for Mashiach, en lo chelik la'olam haba. a person who spreads this poison, I don't want to be too strong, but it's Yaaakov the Gula. And it's a mitzvah rabbah, and Hashem should help me while I'm still in this world. I almost left the world 4 years ago. I had a COVID. Doctors gave up on me. As long as I'm still here, I hope Be'ez Hashem should be able to spread this, to make a kol koireh with the haskama of the Rav. To be scared of Mashiach, I grew up in Aleppo. They burnt our shuls. They called us dogs and worms. We couldn't wear yarmulke in the street. They taught us to be afraid of Gehenna. They described to us what Reishis Chochmah, thank you. What Gehenna is, we're afraid of Gehenna, but Mashiach, we dreamt of Mashiach. We covered the Sefer Torah in black, and the Beis Yosef says they used to put the Sefer Torah on the floor on Tisha B'Av. We felt Tisha B'Av. We dreamt of Mashiach. Dreamt of Mashiach. I remember we were children, and my sisters went to a school that had Beis Yaakovs, and the teachers in the school had a magazine from Europe that had a picture of the Kaisel on it. We never saw a picture of the Kaisel. You put up a picture of the Kaisel in the house, they would hang you in the city square. Hang you to death. The whole family gathered around the picture. We looked at it, and then we burnt it. We burnt it. We dreamt of Mashiach. Go teach children that Mashiach is scary. And they have a Gemara. The Gemara says that Yomim she'em bahem chayfetz. Gemara in Shabbos. The days that you don't want. Why? Because you're not going to have Bechira when Mashiach comes. Yom Shem B'Im Chayfetz, so you want to do tshuva before Mashiach comes. Never mind all the Goliaths. Never mind that the majority of Khal Yisrael are not Shemesh Shabbos and mitzvahs. Never mind that the Shechin is Be'afra, Snari, Me'ofer, Kumi. Never mind. But you're not going to be able to do tshuva. Of course, you should want Mashiach. But you're going to die. And if you live, they're going to announce your sins. And you're not going to have Bechira. It's baloney, excuse me. It's wrong. I can't say it's sick today. Sick is supposed to be in good for some reason. It's ridiculous. Number one, the Rambam Paskins don't like that Gemara. The Rambam Paskins like Shmuel, the Embe, and Olam Hazeh. Limaisa Mashiach, El Hashivet Malchuyos. He passes not like the Gemara. And Rashi and the Ritva, the Shat and the Gemara, what's Embe Hem Chayfetz? There's not going to be the mitzvah tzedakah anymore. Everybody's going to be a billionaire when Mashiach comes. The world, it's going to be, all the goods are going to be there. They're going to be great. So Rashi and Ritva say you could still do tshuva, but even the Ramban, who says when Mashiach comes, we're going to be on the level of Adam Harishin, Kaidam Achet. But Adam Harishin had Bechira. And Mechtav Eliyahu emphasizes this. Adam Harishin had Bechira. And Adam Harishin ate from the Eitz Hadas. So after Mashiach comes, the Rambam says we're going to grow. Ramat Yosef Alav Shalom writes, it says those who were Mis'abel al Yerushalayim, Zoiche v'roye b'simchosa, the Ritvan, the Radvaz, and others say is going to be a pre-Tchias HaMesim, and anybody who is Mis'abel on Yerushalayim is going to come back with Mashiach. Everybody's going to come back with Mashiach. And the Gemara says, Unsatem is a truma le'Aaron HaKohen, and we never gave truma to Aaron. Aaron died in the Midbar on Rosh Chodesh Av. That Aaron is going to come back with Mashiach, and Moshe Rabbeinu is going to take the Aaron up from underneath the Beis HaMikdash. But all those who are misabel, and I dream that Be'ez Hashem Mashiach comes. And you're going to be walking in the street, you say, wow, that's Rabbi Aaron Kotler. And look, over there, that's the Chavetz Chaim, and that's the Rambam, and that's Yirmiyahu, and that's Yeshayahu. to dream about it. So Mataso asks, he says, a Yid who has been in the Shamayim and the Yeshiva Shel Mala, with the Malachim and learning Torah, why would he want to come back to this world? For what? To come back to this world? So Mataso asked it in the Sefer Mountains Chaim, what do you want to come back to this world for? That's the matana. I was Masabal Yerushalayim. I said, taking Chatzois, like they say every night. That's my reward. I should leave the Shemayim and come here to the United States of America for Trump or Kamala. I say, Amalek. Is that what I'm coming for? He doesn't say the question the way I'm saying it. What's the teretz? Rav says, a person in the Shemayim cannot earn anymore. It says, Sha'achas of tshuva masim tovim in this world is worth more than the olam haba, the ganze olam haba. So the tzaddikim are brought down to be able to earn more, and that's worth everything. And that's their reward. So people do steig. After Mashiach comes, even to the Shita of the Ramban. And those who say not like this are mamish repeating the Chet Adam Rishon again and again and again. We don't want to be on the level of Adam Rishon. We want to keep the Yitzhara inside and conquer him. And that's what Adam Rishon said. Adam Rishon was wrong, very wrong. He caused every levaya. And if we want to come to the time of Bila Movis HaNetzach, we got to stop this. I spoke, Baruch Hashem, to a lot of children in the Lakewood Commons this past Sunday. I tried to explain to the children how beautiful the days of Mashiach are going to be. Each one of us is going to be a Novi. It says, "V'hayu melachim oivai omnayich u'nikoseyem." It says they're going to take care of you. Everybody's going to bow down to you. A Yid. They're going to take you to the biggest stadiums, the Gemara says in Megillah, and they want to hear from you. And they're going to charter flights to take us to Eretz Yisrael. I once saw a children's book. The flight control at Tel Aviv airport sees all of a sudden thousands of planes are coming in. Kibbutz Galuyos, and then he sees buildings flying because all the shuls are going to be picked up, be taken to Yerushalayim. Chavetz Chaim spoke once in a shul that didn't have a floor, that it was a dirt floor. And he said to them, Elionov is going to come and he's going to blow the shofar, and he wants to take all of you to Yerushalayim, but the building is going to go and you're going to stay here. There's no floor. No floor. So see to it that there is a floor and that we should go to Yerushalayim. Mamish people, again, it's always a genius. But a person has to know and appreciate that there were 5 tragedies that happened on Tisha B'Av. The first was the Meraglim, with the whole Doir Deya of the Midbar, the Sokris Yamsuf, and the Eser Makos and Matan Torah were wiped out. 15,000 died every year. Tremendous tragedy. The second tragedy was Chorban Bayis Rishon. Again, millions and millions died. The third tragedy, Chorban Bayis Sheni. And the fourth tragedy is Beitar, where the Mered Bar Kochva was put down, and the blood flowed like rivers for miles to the sea. And one wonders, what was the fifth tragedy? What tragedy could be on the list of these terrible, terrible 4 tragedies, each one with millions of Yidden died? Nechresh ha'ir, the city was plowed over. What does it mean? The city was plowed over. What it means is the Romans, Yimach Shemon v'Zichron, they changed Yerushalayim's name. They called it the Eila Capitilonia. They changed the whole street structure in Yerushalayim. You go to the Altstadt and you see the Cardo, the Roman street with the pillars. They changed the whole street structure of Yerushalayim. That's the fifth tragedy. And maybe to explain it a little bit, Some 14 years ago, I went back to Aleppo. Aleppo, Syria. Went back on a private plane with some gevirim. And I'd have a nights. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning in Aleppo. My friends were all sleeping. I took a cab. Take me in Arabic, Shari al-Armanazi. This street, the big street, where my house was. I wanted to see where I was born. And I couldn't find it. Finally, the Secret Service took me. We had Secret Service agents, mamash, protecting us in every way. And I went to my house, and then I walked to where the cheder was, where the mikveh was, where the shul was. My grandfather was involved in building the new section in town. I felt a connection to the old days. A Yid that went to Yerushalayim after the Romans were finished with it, didn't see Yerushalayim. Didn't see the street structure. That's a terrible tragedy. It says, Kegodl Kayam Shivrech. The tragedy of the Chorma is Godel Kayam. When an earthquake happens, a bombing happens, the rubble is still there, but something that goes into the Yam is gone. Gone. And that was what the Romans wanted to do, to make us forget Yerushalayim. Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yemini, we cannot forget Yerushalayim. Tidvak le'shayni lechikim lo eskerechi, to remember Yerushalayim. Only if we do, kavyochol ein osir matira otzmo mebeis asur, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't take himself out of Golus. Le'manchem shulachti bavela, I went to Babel because of you. And us remembering Yerushalayim, and not making up stories that Mashiach is scary, and actually crying as the Avid says. And if he says the Avera of not remembering Yerushalayim makes us forgotten from in the Shamayim, when we do remember, and we do cry, HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a Rachum V'chanun. And if we keep going, we have 50 days until Rosh Hashanah. We have all the tefillas of Rosh Hashanah, as far as begin Rosh Hashanah, and some others. Zichron Shana v'kila lo yisrael. The Gemara says that Ezra tikelem Yisrael, that they should lay in the tochacha in Parshas Kisavoi before Rosh Hashanah. Tichle Shana v'kila lo yisrael. Tachal Shana u'bercha yisrael. We could accomplish tremendous things if we don't forget Yerushalayim. We say in every Yom Tov, Galinu me'artzeinu v'nisrachaknu me'al admaseinu. We're far away from Eretz Yisrael. What does the Yid in Eretz Yisrael say? What does the Yid living in Yerushalayim, what does he say? Person lives in the Altstadt, nisrachaknu me'al admaseinu. Yes, it's Rachaknu Ma'alad Maseinu. The closest to Yerushalayim is not our feet, is not our body, it's the heart. Rabbi Yehuda Levi, the great Meshayer, Rabbi Yehuda Levi wrote a piyut, unforgettable piyut. Libi be'mizrach v'anoichi be'seif ma'arav. My heart is in Yerushalayim, in the Mizrach, and I'm at the end of the West, I'm in Spain. How could I taste what I'm eating? How could it be pleasant? How could I bring my korbanos? Yerushalayim is in the hands of the Christians. Richard, whatever it's called, the lion-hearted, and I'm in the rope of the Arabs. It says all the pleasures of Sfarad are nothing to me compared to the schus of seeing the dirt of the destroyed Beis HaMikdash. And he went to Eretz Yisrael, and an Arab Machshamo riding on a horse trampled him to dirt. And now we have his piyutim, Tzion Alotish Ali, We had Svarim say, Piyat and Rosh Hashanah, Halo im Saf, Devirva, from Yehuda Levi, Halo im Saf, Devirva Saf, and Ephod Utrafim. There's no Beis HaMikdash, there's no Kapyrus, and there's no Paraiches, and all we have is davening and yearning for Mashiach to come. Be'ez Hashem, we will do what we have to do. We will continue doing it. We will not forget to do it. Is the rubber here? Be'ez Hashem. I thank again our host, the Rav Hashem Yarech Yomov, and we should all say, Be'vi as Gol Tzedek V'Meher V'Amenu Amen.
The central focus of the Avodas Hayoim of Tisha B'Av is the Amir of Kinois. Kipshutai, our understanding of what we are doing in engaging in the Amir of Kinois is that since the Avodas Hayoim is to be misabel, to be boiche, to be mekoinen. So the kinois enable us to be aroused, to be mis'er lebchi. And the kinois give words to what we want to express, where we will be misabel on the mikdash. Ordinarily, Avel isn't necessarily mechayev, it doesn't necessarily require us to use words at all. In fact, an Ovel, the Gemara's Mavur, has a din of he'onek doim. An Ovel sits in silence. The reason why our Avelus requires and uses the Amira of Kinois is because since, as Chazal say, the Avelus of Tisha B'Av is an Avelus Yishona, it's not something that we're experiencing in the present, with the same toikef, with the same strength as an Avelus Chadosh Alei Aleichem. So therefore we understand that we use Kinois as a means to be Mis'oyer. When we say and describe the Tsar, the Yisurim, of the Churban, of Golus, of current sorrows, that is Ma'oyer us to be able to be Mis'abel and to be Boicha and to be Mekainen. And so ordinarily we understand that the Amira of Kinois is a means through which we are enabled to better be Mekayim. The Chayvas Hayoim, which is to be Mis'abel, to be Boicha and be Mekainen on the Churban. But in fact, if we are Ma'ayin in the Nusach of the Kinois, the Kino of Eli Tzion ve'oreha ends with a Bakasha. After we describe Alei Shimcha Ashel Chulal B'fi Kami Mitzareh, we describe Chilul Hashem. We then end with a Bakasha Va'al Tachan Yitzav Chulach, for all the Tchinos which we have been tzaveach, which we have cried out to you, Rabbeinu Shalom, Kshoiv Ushma Amoreha. Pay attention to and hear the Amorim, the expressions of Klal Yisrael. It's mevur in the lashon of the kino that in fact kinos are not just a means by which we are mis'oyer and can give expression to bechi, to kino, to evel, but in fact the kinos are a ma'aseh tefillah. And in fact that is misyashiv by that we are mekoinen during the Seder of Tefillah. After Kriyas HaTorah, we're then mekoinen and then finish with Kedusha the Sidra. That would seem to be mavur that kinois belong to the Seder of Tefillah. The kiyum of being mekoinen and being misabel isn't necessarily shaykh dafka to the Seder of Tefillah. But if kinois were inserted in the Seder of Tefillah, that means kinois are accomplishing a Tefillah. Va'al tachan yitzavchu lach. The understanding of what a kino is kinois are a tzvacha. And the Seder of kinois ends with the bakosha kshoiv ushma amoreha. We want the actual amiras hakinois itself to be niskabel in the same way as we say shma koleinu. We describe the Rebbeinu Shalom as a mazin. And therefore we understand that what we are doing in the amira of kinois is actually a maisa tefillah on a bakasha. Perhaps this is the Pesach to be done in a shaila that Reb Shlomo Zalman would ask. That Minig Yisrael is, when we say Eli Tzion V'Oreo, is to stand up. And he asked that Eli Tzion V'Oreo is not the last kino that we say. After Eli Tzion V'Oreo, we say Shomrim Titin Koil Mitzauni Avoinai, and not just that, but Eli Tzion V'Oreo itself is just the kino. Eli Tzion V'Oreo itself doesn't describe anything about the future Gul of Klal Yisrael. Like we said, the very last part of Eli Tzion V'Oreo is Ali Shimcha Shel Chula B'Fikami Mitzrayah. The whole of Eli Tzion is just a description of the oimek of the Golus of Nechurban of Klal Yisrael. So why then should we be oimed? The reason why we sit by kinnis is not just because kinnis don't require amidah, and since we're not allowed to yet sit on a kisei before chatzoi, so memela we have to sit on karka. The amira of kinnis itself is a maise evel. It's mechayev yeshiva b'karka. In fact, there's a hanhaga that's brought, a fascinating hanhaga, just to see how Gedol Yisrael saw the avodah of kinnis. Rabbi Yashiv would, on Tisha B'Av, start his day at the same time as he always would, early in the morning, and he would begin saying kinnos. He would say many kinnos before davening, then he would say some with the tzibur, and he would go on saying kinnos for the rest of the day. And his children are made that even after chatzos, when he continued saying kinnos, he still sat ala karka. Because he said the din of kinnos is mechayev a maise evel, which is mechayev yeshiva ala karka. So Rabbi Shlomo Zalman asked, so why is Eli Tzion V'Oreo said ba'amidah? It's a kino. And perhaps the answer is because at the end of the kino there's a tefillah, and that tefillah is mechayev amidah. We're standing because we're saying, Alei Shimcha Asher Chula, on all the Aleis and Aleis that have come before, Alei Koved Asher Gola, Alei Machatz, Alei Simcha Seiveo. But what is all of that coming to express? It's coming to express a tefillah. V'al tzacha nitzavchu loch kshoy v'shma amoreo. We're being oimed as a ma'isa tefillah to say that what should emerge from all these kinos is a bakosha to the Rebbeinu Shalom that should be niskabel. But how is it that kinos which describe Tzarasan Shal Yisrael and Churban, how are those a ma'isa tefillah? And why is it that in fact we find that relatively, there's, even in the kinnis of the Rishonim and the kinnis of the Kolir, there's relatively less that we, bakosha, direct bakosha, for Binyan HaMikdash. And be'ikah the kinnis are a lengthy description of Tzarasim Shel Yisrael and the shiflus of Golus. What's the reason for that? We would expect that the ikar focus of the kinnis should describe just Churban HaMikdash and a bakosha that the Mikdash should be nivne. But we find that roiv of the kinnis, even the kinnis of the Rishonim, be'ikar are a description of Tzaras HaGolus, Tzaras HaChurban, and focus relatively little on Churban HaMikdash. And in fact, it's a ha'ora that the Kadmonim ask, even on Megillas Eicha itself. In the first parak of Eicha, Churban HaMikdash is a remez. It's only really mentioned lahedya in the second parak, and even then, there's very relatively much less arichos directly about Churban HaMikdash than we would expect. And l'chura the Bir hadvarim, is to understand what the matara of being misabel ala mikdash is. And what are we being mekoinen and what are we being beicha about? To be ma'ayin in the lashon of the Mesilas Yesharim in Chasidus. The lashon of the Mesilas Yesharim, he says, V'chein kol chochem v'chochem Yisrael sheyesh boi divrei Torah la'amitoi u'misaneach al kvoidoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'al kvoidom shel Yisrael kol yomav u'mechamed u'mitzave u'mitzape al kvoid Yerushalayim v'al Beis HaMikdash v'al Yeshua shetatzmiach b'korev b'yomeinu v'al kibbutz Goliois. V'hinei, zot the Mesilas Yesharim, vadei, that was based on the Lashon B'tona de Be'elio. V'hinei vadei tzorch sheyitztar to mitzar mamish ala golus v'ala churban. Mitzad ma sheze goyre miut kiviyochol l'chvoida yizbarach. V'yisave l'geula lefi shebo yihei ilui l'chvoid Hashem yizbarach. Shari yefsher l'chvoid ha'elyoin l'israbois elo b'geulosan shal Yisrael ובריבוי כבוידם שזה תולי בזה באמס. ומכשקוסה בתונה דבליו שהזכרתי ומסנח על כבוידה של הקדוש ברוך הוא ועל כבוידם של ישראל. The Mesilas Yesharim is being magdir that the avoida of Avelos on Churban is not on what was. The Rebbeinu Shalom was shoifech hamosai al eitzim va'avonim. The Avelos of Churban is because the matzav after Churban is a matzav of heder kvod Shamayim. The oimek of the tsar of Churban is not what was taken away, but that we're missing now the hechetimtza for the shleimus of Gilui kvod Shamayim. In the Lashon of Tonad ve'Eliyahu, mesaneach al kvoida shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'kvoidem shel Yisrael kol yomav. ומחמד ומסעווה ומצפה על כבוד ירושלים ועל בית המקדש ועל ישוע שתצמיח. Because like the Mesilas Yesharim, שהרי אפשר לכבוד העליון לישרבויס, אלו בגאולוסן של ישראל ובריבוי כבודם. And therefore the ikar emphasis in the kinois is not an emphasis on the churban that was, but it's an emphasis on darchei tzion avelos b'li boi moed. All the gedula, all the tefaares, all the gilu shchino that should be, that's what we're being misayin on. And therefore, when the kinas are marich in the shiflus of Yisrael, we're not being misayin specifically on that Klal Yisrael is betzara, but Klal Yisrael betzara means that kvoid shomayim is behester. And by being mazkir and emphasizing and experiencing through yeshiva ala karka and through the amir of the kinus, the intensity of Gola Kovid Yisrael, what we're experiencing is the intensity of the lack of Gili Kvoid Shamayim. It's meduktik than the Seder of the Piyut at the end of the Elitzion Vorel, like we mentioned. The last bakosha that we have is preceded, Al Tachan Yitzav Chuloch. What's that preceded by? Ale Shimcha Asher Chulo B'fikami Mitzareh. The summary, the sachakol of all the kinnas is to come away with one sensitivity. Ale shimcha shechulo b'fikomi mitzareh. Bakoshas being misboinen in avelus is essentially a bakosha for gilui kvod shamayim. And therefore we say, Val tachan yitzav chulov kshoivu shma amoreh. The Tur in Hilchas Tefillah explains the nusach of the end of Birchas Avos. V'zoicher chazdei Avos u'meivi goye livnei v'neim leman shemoi ba'avo. That there could be geula that would be b'schus Avos, but even if tamus schus Avos, but there's a seder of meivi geula livnei v'neim leman shemoi. The Gra in Evan Shlomo writes that the Gemara says in Paarak Chelek, Kolu kol akitzim v'adayin ben David lo ba. He says the kates that we will be zoiche to is a kate that is not going to be b'schus tshuva, but it will be leman shmoi ba'ava. He says our bakosha now is that the Klal Yisrael should be nigal b'schus gilui kvod shamayim. What we're being oisik in kinois is not just to give words and to give us an ability to be mekayim avelus and to be mekoinen and to be boiche. But the more we live, the more we describe, the more we experience the tzara and the shiflus of Klal Yisrael, the more we be misoyer, not so much that it's what was neder, but that if this is the metzius of Klal Yisrael, then gili kvod shamayim is chaser. Sheyitztayer tomid tsar mamish ala golus vala churban mitzad ma sheze goyre miut kiviyochol lechvoid yizbarach v'yisave legeula lefishbo yeh ilu lechvoid Hashem yizbarach. What we want to be able to be zeiche to ayidei kinus is about tachan yitzavchul of kshovu shma moreo. That we've undergone and experienced and described and been boiche on tzoroson shel Yisrael is because what we are being mevakish and what we're being misava for is gili kvod shemayim. Eicha yoshva v'odod ho'ir abosiyom hoisa ka'almono. We're not so much focusing on Churban HaMikdash. We should begin right away with the description how the Oyev came in and was meitzitz oyer by Mikdash. We don't begin with that. Hoisaka almono. Almono, the Kadmoinim say, means because we chose Shchina Akdosha. Kiviocho Shchina Akdosha is called Matronisa de Malka. Hoisaka almono means Kiviocho, the Rebbeinu Shalom, doesn't have a mokim ba'olam. Hare the Medrash Rabbah explains that the whole reason for Binyan HaMikdash was nis'ava liyos like dira batachtoinim. And if the Mikdash is chaser, then we're chaser in the seder of Gili Kvod Shemayim. Kinos are a bakosha, a cry, and yitzavchulo for Gili Kvod Shemayim, because that's what we're mis'ava for. In Arizal, it's mevur that the hisboinenus in the shiflus of Kvod Shemayim is not something that would seem as abstract and far as it would sound. Ordinarily, we imagine Gilu Shchina, Kvod Shemayim as inyonim that are very abstract and very beyond us to be able to feel are part of our personal avodah. The Arizal says, this is the Lashon of the Arizal. He says, and Chazal tell us, Golu le'edoim shchina imoim, that when Klal Yisrael was goyle to Edom, Shchina HaKadosh accompanied Klal Yisrael, he says, Dahainu kisha ha'odom oise maase Edom. If a person does maisim, which are associated with Edom, moirid umamshich l'shom bechinos elikus ha'mechayes nafshay. Golus HaShchina doesn't mean something that happens just in the klolius and the tzura of Klal Yisrael. It's not something that happens just in the broad olam. It happens inside every person. Golu le'edom shchina imoem means that it's the rachamim of the Rebbeinu Shalom that even when we're oise maase edom and we take the Shechina HaKadosha that's b'toich liboy shel kol echad v'echad, as Reb Chaim Volozhin brings in Shar Aleph and Perek Vav in Hagah, and takes the Shechina HaKadosha that's b'toich shel kol echad v'echad and is mashpil it and is moired it, still the Rebbeinu Shalom is with the person. There's still a yechelis to be mesakin and to be mesala and to be shov. Golu le'edem Shechina imoim zot, that result happens inside every person. K'sha'odom oise maase edom, moirid umamshich l'shom, elikus, that's l'chayes nafshay. And the Rizal goes on to explain that that's what we are signifying where we yoshev ala karka. We're signifying that b'mokum that we should be oimed l'mayla, which the Sefer Hayosha, that's miyuchas to Rishonim, says the reason why a person stands upwards and a behemoth stands with its head facing down is because shoirish nishmosai of the Odom is me'al yoinim. Whereas an Odom is a behemoth, a nefesh habahamis that comes min ha'ofar. When we sit on the karka, what we're showing is that we've reduced ourselves. That our mahus now is more shaykh to offer than it's shaykh to shamayim. That's the inyan of yeshiva ala karka. the experience of Golus HaShechina that happens b'seich kol echad ve'echad. It's not something abstract. It's something that each one of us can feel and each one of us can be misboinen in the avodah of the Yom of Tisha B'Av. Golu le'edom Shechina imoim. Which occurs inside every person. And therefore we see that with that yeshiva ala karka, we're Mekayim, what the Rambam in Perek Hev Hilchos Tainus says is the Ikar Matara of Tisha B'Av. When the Rambam in the beginning of Perek Hev Hilchos Tainus sets out what the avodah of the Taniyos are, Mipnei atzoros she'iru bohem, kidei le'oirer ha'levovois v'liftoyach darchei hatshuva. It's to be me'oirer levovois and be peiseach darchei tshuva. Chasam Sofer and Erechaim and Siman Reish Ches brings that the Ran is muvur, that the Ran argues on the Rambam, and the Ran holds that the Iker of Yom Tisha B'Av is Avelus. And the Chasam Sofer says that the Rayel Adover is because on Shar Taniyos we say Slichos, but on Tisha B'Av we don't say Slichos, we only say Kinos. That would seem to show that the Iker Avodas Hayoim is Avelus. But perhaps we can be miyashev that of course even l'shitas Rambam, the hadgosha of the Yoim is to be mekoyin and to be boich and be misabel. But loy meboya that the Rambam in Hilchos Ovel says that every Maisa Avelus is essentially a Maisa Tshuva from the Midas Hadin that's Motuach. But we understand from the Arizal that the Maisa Avelus itself, the Yeshiva ala Karka, is an activist boinenus in Golu le'edom Shechina imoim. We're being misboinen in what causes Gilush, what causes Heder Shechina. What causes Heder Shechina is not what happens in Khal Yisrael in general. What causes Golus HaShechina, like the Chaim Volozhin explains, is that Shechina Bechlolius in Khal Yisrael is built from the Shechina that's B'seich Libo Shel Kol Echad Ve'echad. It starts with every one of us individually. And therefore Yeshiva ala Karka is an opportunity to be misboinen that Osa Maaseh Edom took the Chelek Eloiki that's within us and was mashpel it ad la'ofer. It's brought in Siach Sarfei Kodesh that a chassid of the Chiddushei Harim once came back from the Yerid and told the Chiddushei Harim a vart that he heard from a Rav in the city where the Yerid was, and the Chiddushei Harim praised the vart. He said, Al derech hadrush, on the pasuk, Eicho hishlich mishamayim eretz tiferes Yisrael, which Apipshat means, how is it that the Rebbeinu Shalom Kiviyachol was mashlich Klal Yisrael mishamayim all the way to be shveilim ba'aretz, hishlich mishamayim eretz tiferes Yisrael. So this Rav said, Al derech hadrush, he said, Eicho hishlich mishamayim eretz. The way to read the pasuk is different. Eicha hishlich mishamayim. It's one thing that Klal Yisrael had made themselves, in his lashon, nisht himmeldik. But Eretz Tiferes should become Klal Yisrael. That Eretz should become Tiferes Yisrael, that can't be Seivel. Eich hishlich mishamayim is one tzara, but that Eretz should become Tiferes Yisrael, dashay nisht. Klal Yisrael goes through periods of aliyas and yeridas, but the hisboinunus is like the Arizal says, Golu le'edoim. Klal Yisrael perhaps isn't in the shleimus of the madrega of Shamayim, but that Eretz should become Tiferes Yisrael. Chiddushei Harim was makalis this vart. That's what would be misboinin and would be yoshev ala karka. It's a different avodah of tshuva. We're experiencing the shiflus because, like we began with from the Mesilas Yesharim, the avodah of being misboinen and shiflusum shal Yisrael is to misboinen in the chil shem shomayim that is part of that Metzias. And that's what we're misaveh to. the ha'ara still remains that even if we understand that yeshiva ala karka is an act of avelus, but why don't we find a greater presence of the avodah of tshuva in the seder of the avodah of Tisha B'Av? Why don't we find that there's not just yeshiva ala karka, which is ma'ur us to understand how we goyrim siluk shchina, but why don't we find a more direct yisiachsus to tshuva, as the Chasim Sofer asks? There's a yisoid of the Chasim Sofer in Drashas. Chasim Sofer is coming to explain something which we're very much noveich in. And that is, if the Rambam tells us in Perek Zayin of Hilchos Tshuva that Ein Yisrael ni geolim ela b'tshuva, and we have a mitzvah of tzpiyah liyeshua, so why don't we find that kaseder we are oisik in tshuva, directed towards being zeiche to binyan hamikdash? And why don't we find that we're maftzir b'tfila in order to be able to be zeiche to the gula shleima? Of course, in the nusach hatfila we have kama bakashas. We have the bakasha of geula, Gal Yisrael. We have the bakasha of kibbutz galuyos. We have the bakasha of shavas hasanhedrin, the bakasha of binyan Yerushalayim, the bakasha of tzmichas keren David, the bakasha of avodah. But we don't find either an established oifen of tshuva and a mechayev to be maftir b'tfilah. So the Chasim Sofer says, Mikra Molei Diber HaKosov. It's a pasuk. Hishbati eschem b'nois Yerushalayim b'tzvois u'ba'aylois asode im to'iru v'im to'iru ad sa'ava ad shetechpat. And Chasim Sofer brings the Gemara in the end of Ksubas and Daf Kufid Aleph. Shakadosh Baruch Hu hishbias Yisrael shelo lidchos haketz. What's our avodas at the Chasim Sofer? U'mechuyovim anachnu rak lehazmin atzmeinu lios ru'uyim lihigoyel. Avaloi la'oirer ha'ava v'lidchok haketz b'koyach. Says we just have to be meichen es atzmeinu. How exactly the Seder of Geula will come, we don't know. We can't even be doichik the avos at the Chasim Sofer. And in fact, if we're ma'ayin the Lashonis of the Rambam in the end of Hilchos Melachim, the Rambam in fact says that the Iker Oifen in which Klal Yisrael will be shov bizman ha'geula will be that the Rebbeinu Shalom will send the Novi, and that Novi will bring Klal Yisrael to tshuva. Yamoid Novi li Yisrael li yasher Yisrael lehichin libam shene'emar hine anochi sholech lechem es Eliyahu hanovi. And that, the Rambam says, is what the mission in the Adius means, that Mator of Eliyahu hanovi is losum shalom ba'olam shene'emar v'hishiv le'vavis albanim. How exactly Klal Yisrael will be transformed to an Am that is finally going to be Zeicha to Gula, we don't know. That the Novi will teach us. There'll be a Novi that will be Oimid li Yisrael, li Yasher es libam elahachin. Our task at the Chasim Sofer is just to enable ourselves, to prepare ourselves. What's that avodah? To be mishtoikik and be nenach on the tsar that Shechina is neder from Klal Yisrael. To be misboinen, like the Arizal says, of what it means, Golu le'edom Shechina imoim. So often we ask, after Giluyim of the Rebbeinu Shalom's Hanhaga of Atzur Tomim Pali Ki Chol Rav Mishpat, we ask, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom want from us? And the answer is, we don't know. Because if the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted us to know, he would send the Novi. But the answer is, we don't need to know. Because if the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't send us a Klal Yisrael Novi, then the answer is, it's B'soich Liboy Shel Kol Echad Ve'echad. It's an opportunity for every person to literally on Tisha B'Av and the rest of the year, al derech zeh, to be Yoshe Bakarka and be Mizboinen, what it means, Golu le'edom Shechina imoim. What it means, Osu Maaseh Edom, and being mashpil. The Chelak Eloikami Mal, that there isn't a person, so that the person then belongs, like the Chidusha Orim said, to Eretz, not to Shamayim. That's what the Chasam Sofer means, lahachines libeinu. We don't even know that the Chasam Sofer had to be maftzir b'tefillah. We don't know what to ask for. We don't know, and we're not supposed to know how to be ma'or da'ava. We're supposed to be mechen es atzmeinu, lahazmin es atzmeinu. Lahazmin means to put ourselves forward as ruim ligoyel, to make ourselves kelim that are roy ligoyel. The ikar of ishtoikus of the geula is for gilu shchina. And the way to prepare ourselves to be kelim, zot l'msilas hasharim, is to be misboinen, how churban is goyer mesiluk shchina, and to be misave for that gilu shchina. But to be misboinen, zot d'arizal, how gilu shchina essentially comes from every yochid. How lebasoif Klal Yisrael will be nigal? Zot the Rambam, the Rebbeinu Shalom will send the Novi who will be miyasher es libeinu. Ve'hishiv levavis albanim. We're just being mazmin ourselves. Even though there are many achronim that understand that the Seder of the Geula that we will be, Be'ez Hashem, will be zeichetu b'meheira, will be the Geula of Be'itoi. It will be a Geula not b'schus Yisrael like we brought from the Gra, but like the Torah says, b'schus l'man shmoi ba'ava, l'schus shmoi ha'mechul b'goyim. But the Leshem, the Baal HaLeshem in the end of the Sefer Hagdomas Hasharim and Hashmotei says that even so, even within Be'itoi there are aspects of Achishena also. The Rebbeinu Shalom, even within Be'itoi, can be memar the Geula al Yidei Achishena. The Gra in the Biurim, the Agodos of Sabe de Be'atuna, says the Iker Schus that brings Klal Yisrael to allow what the Goyin calls in his Lashon the Leda of Mashiach, is that Adarabba, in the Zman that the Gra says, based on the Lashon of the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Klal Yisrael are in a matzav of Oichlin, V'shoisim, Usmeichim, V'toira Choizeres Alum Deo. In that Kufa, says the Goyin, the Iker Gemar of the Seder of Geula is going to be if Klal Yisrael is able to be Oiches B'Torah and not to be Misrapim Midivrei Torah. He says if Klal Yisrael is Zoiche to be Oiches and not to be Misrapim Midivrei Torah, then Be'ezer Hashem, Chevli Moshiach will come to the maskana of, in the Lashon of the Tefillah of Kiddush Levana, Ateres Tiferes la'amusei boten she'masidim nischadesh k'moisa. We just have to be mazmin es atzmeinu. And so the guy in the Ikar Avodah is Adarabah in a tkufa of achila v'shtia, simcha, be'ikar. Not as man necessarily of tzara. But Torah chizeres aloim deo, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants Klal Yisrael to be oiches b'divrei Torah. And mitoch that achiza on divrei Torah, we zeicha to gula shleima b'mher b'yameinu amen.
Peshus, more Dasra Shlita. The Balach Sanya for today's Kinnus. Rabbi Dwek, the mastermind, the lave that drives behind this Kinnus. The Yiratzin that all the Hisayrus that comes out of today's Kinnus. So Beistein. And they should be Zeicha to be Royab and Echamasa B'Korov. A number of years ago, there was a mishpacha in Yerushalayim, sitting shiva. A young mother, young wife of Nifteris, a heartbroken family, a house full of children. The youngest was about 5 years old, who didn't fully comprehend what was going on. They sent her off to a neighbor for the duration of Shiva, while the family was misabel, makabel all the menachamim. The father himself, broken, trying to hold it together, to keep the family held up. And he was doing a valiant job. Until one day in the middle of Shiva, that 5-year-old walked into the room with a question. She came from the neighbor's home. A grand announcement. Where's Mommy? When is Mommy coming home? Pin drop silence. Not a dry eye in the room. Nobody knew what to say. Until the oldest daughter, mature beyond her years, pulled aside this girl, sat her on her lap, and tried to explain to her that Hashem took Mommy away and we don't know when she's coming back. Today, we are that little girl. Baseless over the Churban Beis Hamikdash, and we call out with the question, Lama lo netzach tishkochenu? Where is the Shechina? When is the Shechina coming home? But unlike that little girl, we were given an answer. An answer that's Misyashav al Alev. Hayoim in Bekoiloi Sishma'u. It's in our hands, Khal Yisrael collectively in our hands. As we end off Megillah Seicha, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha B'noshuva, Chadei Shomenu Kikedem. To ask the question of Lama Lo Netzach without addressing the Hayoim and Bekoiloi Sishma'u, we would be remiss. It's only a Chatzi Dover. What's the Churban about? What do we have to do to rectify? What do we have to do to bring it back? Sagt the Gemara in Yuma. Churban Bayis Rishon, Gimel Chamurus, Habay Dezor, Gile Raya, Shvichas Domim, Churban Bayis Sheni, Sinas Chinam. In the Yerushalmi, there's an addition. Churban Bayis Sheni is not only Sinas Chinam, it's also Avas HaMomen. Love of money. Obviously, not exactly a very admirable trait. But the Yerushalmi needs an explanation. It's not one of the Taryag. What's the chet? Why did it bring Churban? To understand the Yerushalmi is to understand the Shirish and the Makar of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, both the first and second. The Beis Halevi, the end of Parashas Bo, writes, Churban Bayis Rishon and Churban Bayis Sheni is rooted in the two primary chatoim of the Yidden in the Midbar. The two chatoim that lulei the tzil of Moshe Rabbeinu chas v'sholom, we be nischayev kloya. Of course, we're talking about the chet ha'egel and the chet of meraglim. Those two chatoim are the source of Churban Bayis. And more specifically says the Beis Halevi, it's subdivided. Churban Bayis Rishon is rooted in Chet HaEgel, and Churban Bayis Sheni, the Makar, the Shirish, is Chet HaMeraglim. The first part of the Beis Halevi, very understandable. The Chet of Egel is a Chet of Avodah Zarah. Not just Avodah Zarah, Vayakumu L'tzachek. Rashi brings from the Tanchuma, the Lashon of Tzchoik, we find by Shvichas Damim and by Gili Arayis. Shvichas Damim Kipshuta, Ichur ben Miriam. And an element, a tinge of Arayis as well. By Yakumu L'tzachek, everything lied in that Chet HaEgel. It fits like a glove. The Chet HaEgel is the Shirish and Makar of Churban Bayis Rishon that came down because of the Gimel Chamurus, Avodah Zarah, Gili Arayis, Shvichas Damim. It's perfect. But what about the second part of the Beis Halevi? The Shirish of Churban Bayis Sheni is Chet HaMeraglim. Yes, it's true. The Chet HaMeraglim was a Chet of Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara about who? About the Eibishter. Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. We can hardly categorize this Chet as a Chet of Sinas Chinam, of an Adam L'Chaveiroi. What's the connection between the Chatoim of Churban Bayis Sheni and Chet HaMeraglim? If anything, the source of the Chet of the Meraglim is the Chsarn and Emunah. They built the Yecheles Hashem. The Gemara analyzes, compares and contrasts the door of Churban Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni. The Gemara wants to know which one was worse. Sagt the Gemara, Tnuei Nechem Lebira. Take a look at the Golus. Golus of Bayis Rishon lasted only 70 years. Golus of Bayis Sheni was still in the middle of it. It's thousands. Says the Gemara, Rishonim shenes gala avoinam nes gala kitzam. Achroinim shloines gala avoinam loines gala kitzam. Says the Goin. What's the only kavanas haGemara? The Rishonim outwardly were chaytei. It was awful. Inwardly, they were pure and pristine. The Achroinim, the door of Churban Bayis Sheni, outwardly, Isaac and Torah, Ma'asim Tovim. Inwardly, at the core, they were rotten. Loines galu avoinam. Therefore, loines galu kitzam. The Rishonim, says the guy in Resamu bitchoinem b'Hashem, but the Achroinim, the Churban Bayis Sheni, that door lacked emunah and betachon, says the guy. You'll ask that Chazal say that the reason why it was destroyed because of sin as chinam, says the Goin, someone who's lacking emunah and betachon. That's where you find kin of the sachros. That results in sin as chinam. Someone who lives with the Rebbeinu Shalom, someone who lives with betachon emunah in his heart, he doesn't point fingers, he understands everything comes from the Borei Olam. About 30 years ago, in Bnei Brak, a Yid by the name of Rabbi Aaron Postovsky, Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Ktana Birchas Yehuda, house full of children, one of his boys, Zisa, Yingel, Shloimi, he was coming home from Cheder on the bus one day. He got out of the bus. The bus driver, a Yid, loser, he closed the doors after dropping off Shloimi and he started driving away until his ears were met with shrieks and shrills like he'd never heard in his life. Slammed on the brakes, he opened up the door, chaos. It's not clear exactly what transpired. But the bottom line is, Shloimi was no more. The Postovsky mishpacha, broken, plunging into mourning, beginning to sit shiva. There were murmurs, there were whispers, growing louder and louder, questioning the achrayis responsibility of loser, the bus driver. Could this have been prevented? Was there a pshia? But not a word from the Postovskis. They sat shiva in silence. Loser took the week off. Collect his thoughts. Contemplating what he's going to do with his life. How could he possibly go back to work? But what else could he do? He didn't have any skills. The last day after Shiva, as Luz is sitting at his home contemplating, he hears a knock at the door. A visitor. Nobody came to visit in the past week. He opens the door, and behind the door he sees none other than Rabbi Aaron Postovsky and his wife. His heart sunk. Undoubtedly, they came to let out their anger, to let out their sorrow, to berate me. In a soft tone, Baron asks, Loser, let's sit down and talk a little bit. They sit down, and the first words out of Baron's mouth, Loser, this has nothing to do with you. Rabbi's machshavas blevish, v'atzas Hashem hisokum. The Rebbeinu Shalom wanted this to happen, and there was absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. We don't have tinus on you. He broke down crying, apologizing profusely. The next day, he got up in the morning and he got into his bus. And he drove to the Bestovsky bus stop once again. And when he opened the doors the next morning, standing by the bus stop were a baron and his wife, escorting and encouraging the rest of his children to get onto the bus, waving them, have a good day. Mika Amcha Yisrael. A Yid that lives with the Rebbeinu Shalom Amunah and Betachan internalized. There's no kinah and no sachrus. That's what it means, sinas chinam. What's chinam about sinah? Do we hate for naught? A grown adult hates for reasons. There's a loss, a physical loss, a financial loss, an emotional tsar. What do we hate about chinam? Relative to the perspective of someone who lives with Amunah and Betachan, the finger pointing is all chinam. Yes, sinas chinam, the Churban Ba'isheni is rooted in the chet of the Meraglim. The chet of Mibilti Yechelis Hashem, that Chesaron of Amunah, which brought in its wake a Bechiyah Shel Chinam. Bechiyah Shel Chinam? Yes. Relative to the Madrega, the Dardeya, the Madrega of Amunah they should have had, the Bechiyah was a Bechiyah Shel Chinam. Hence, the Shayrish and the Mekar. The Churban Ba'isheni that came Mishum Schinas Chinam. And this is what the Yerushalmi really means. Avas Mammon. Money. What's money? Money, it's everything. But money is nothing. What can't money buy in this world? Hi, Alma. But in and of itself, worthless. Doesn't have much nutritional value. Doesn't taste too good. Doesn't make for a very warm beged or a very effective roof. The precious metal, the banknote, the string of zeros and ones that is this electronic currency, in and of itself, efes v'soyu. A big zero. What is money? What's the pursuit of money? What's the love of money? Money is security. In the financial markets, a financial asset is referred to as a security. It can't be better expressed in the words of David HaMelech, "Habaytchem b'chelam u'v'roi v'ashtam yishalalu." Baytchem b'chelam. It's what people put their trust in. The government system of saving for later time in life, or what's left of it, it's called social security. It's all about security. The Gemara Bava Kama tells us that Avram Avinu had a matbeya. He had a coin. What was the coin of Avram Avinu? On one side of the coin, Zokan Uskena. On the other side, Bachar Upsula. The Sefer HaChaim, the Maral brother, writes, this matbeya was depicting the nest of Avram Avinu that the whole world talked about. Ziknusa, he turned into a Bachar Upsula and they had children. Why did he put it on a coin? Zok the Sefer HaChaim. Because the coin is what's mashkiach from Bnei Adam Ashkochas HaBoirei. It's the epitome, it's the semel of Koichiv Yitzim Yodi. I am good, I'm okay, I'm safe and secure. That, B'dafki, is the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to let us know that it's not the case. That's why Avram Avinu was matbi, his matbeya of Zokin Uzkeina, Bachar Ubsula. The only bitachon we have is in the Ribono Olam. Habaytchem b'chelam, they replaced Amunah B'tachan in the Beirei in Chelam and Rav Oshram. The last vestige of Shem Shemayim in America. The only place, at least in the meantime, it's left is on the dollar bill. In God we trust. It's so rooted. in what used to be pashut in the world, something that we have to internalize. Even that hasn't been eradicated yet, at least in the meantime. It's not just what we have to remember, but in fact, what makes money have value is betachon and emunah. In Tafresh Peites, the Great Depression of 1929, the entire world economy came to a screeching halt. Bread lines, even in America. No one had what to eat. Rabbi Chanan penned a mimer with Mefursim in the papers at the time, explaining what's going on by the Great Depression. It's unlike anything we've ever experienced. In the times of Tanakh, Horav was an agricultural disaster. There was no wheat, the crops were ruined. In 1929, there were warehouses full of tfuah. Commodities, the basic essentials were all there. A shortage of money? Banks were full of kesef ezav. What went wrong? Writes Rabbi Chanan, what happened is there's no movement. Chazal say, Lama nikra shmoi zuzim. Why is money called zuz? Because it has to move, otherwise it's worthless. Stationary money has no value. The economy needs movement. Why is there no movement, Dr. Baseless? Because there's no trust. Everyone is panic-stricken. Afraid to put out a penny, afraid to invest, afraid to take risks. When everyone is panic-struck and no one trusts each other, there is no economy. Dr. Baseless, why is there no emunah amongst people? Because there's no emunah in the Beirei Olam. Mida keneged mida, when we don't lost our emunah in Beirei Olam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away emunah from the shuk, and therefore there's no trust, there is no economy. The Rebbeinu Shalom was matbiya on the economy of all ages. In God we trust. The chet of Dor, Churban Bayesheni, is Sinas Chinam and Avos Mammon. It's all screaming out the same point. The core is rotten because it's lacking emunah and betachon. And when it's lacking emunah and betachon, it's replaced with the bitachon of our beitchen bechelam of Reivashim Yisalolu. Why does that emunah and bitachon create mikdash and the lack thereof destroy mikdash? And what does it mean altogether that they didn't have emunah and bitachon? They were Isaac and Torah, Ma'asim Tovim, no bitachon, no emunah. Today's day and age, we're still suffering from those chatoim. We don't have emunah and betachon. Give a look here, lately at HaKodesh. How much Torah, how much stock of a chesed. But there's believing, and there's believing. In the mind, the concepts we're very familiar with. V'yadata hayoim. Crystal clear. The Vashivaisa elavavecha, bringing it down into the heart, that's where the challenge lies. And Dessler writes that the distance between V'yadata and Vashivaisa is the distance between Shemayim and Oretz. There's a Shechina in Shemayim. To make Binyan Beis HaMikdash, we have to bring it down to Oretz. It all starts within the B'saich Kol Echad Ve'echad. To the extent that we bring down the V'yadata to the Hashevaisa, we bring Shemayim down to Oretz. That's the extent we're going to bring down the physical edifice from Shemayim to Oretz. The challenge of Emunah is not in the mind. The Avodah of Emunah is not in Meir Nevuchim and Shara Yichud. Some 55 years ago, when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, the whole world was abuzz. Everyone was tumulting. There was a cheder in Tel Aviv. The Menal of Moshe Turk, he called together an assembly of all the cheder Yinglach to try to impress upon them the Neflois HaBoirei. The whole world was talking about the moon, the Rebbeinu Shalom's Chachma, the Kol Yochel, especially because word got out that one of the astronauts, while he was on his moonwalk, he said Psukim of Tehillim. He was a guy. He said other things, gefährliche things. But he also said psukim from Tehillim. And the Menal sees the opportunity to try to pound in. The Flois HaBoire, you see even a guy making the Flois HaBoire, psukim in Tehillim. I say Shemayim v'Haaretz. Yoimam Hashem Yishli Hakek of Yerech Ba'Loila. And he's going on. Inspiring the Tinoike Shel Beis Rabban until somebody pipes up. One of the little boys. Meshugana. Everyone was taken aback. Such an inspirational moment. Someone has the audacity, the chutzpah to spoil everything. Meshugana. The Menal called out. Who said that? The boy raised his hand. What did you say? Meshugana. Who's the Meshugana? The astronaut, of course. Why is he a Meshugana? The little boy answered. He has to travel to the moon to know that Rebbeinu Shalom can do anything. I'm a 5-year-old Cheder Yingel and I know that. I'm a Meshugana. The 5-year-old Cheder Yingelach are Greise Chachamim. What changes between that 5-year-old and the adult Meshugana Welt that we live in? Die Welt mit einer Meshugana. The Briskerov once saw a bunch of Yingelach running around, laughing, giggling, and he posed the question, why are children so freilach but adults are full of depression and anxiety? And the Briskerov answered his question. The Rebbeinu Shalom hat baschaffen a freiliche Welt. Kommt ein Mensch mit sein narrische Geschbeunis und macht es unbedingt. The world is screaming out Emunah, it's freilich. Wherever we look. He was paraphrasing the pasuk in Koheles. Elokim asas adam yashar v'heima bikshu cheshbonus rabim. It's the narrische cheshbonus that make things all cloudy. Where are those cheshbonus stemming from? From the mind? Heima bikshu cheshbonus rabim. It all comes from the heart. Uvleiv kol chacham leiv nosati chachma. Says Reb Tzaddik, chachma starts from the bikush halev. When the pasuk describes all of the chachma of Shlomo HaMelech, the chacham mikol adam, the lashon pasuk is called cheshek Shlomo shekofetz. The first step is the chacham leiv. He who is mavakish is interested, he wants. To the extent and to the degree that his leiv is open, that's how much chachma is poured in. I think it's safe to say that everyone here knows Shabbos Shmoneh Esrei Baal Peh. Almost everyone. Almost Baal Peh. How many times do you say Shabbos Shmoneh Esrei? Once a week. Every tefillah is a different nusach. Ma'ariv, Shachrit, Shabbos, Mincha. How many people know Huracham on Monday and Thursday, Baal Peh? Twice a week. What's the difference? The difference is the heart. On Shabbos, the leiv is open. And if the leiv is open, the mind is makabel. Monday and Thursday, the leiv isn't so open. Glancing at the watch full of things I have to do. Hopefully not glancing at the phone. And let's be honest, somewhere, at least by some, in the recesses of their hearts, somewhere deep down, when the tzibur starts saying v'hurachim, a tinge of disappointment. There's no Baal Bris, no chassan, maybe a yontiv I forgot about. The difference is the leiv. V'yadata hayoim, ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. The Nara Cheshbainis comes from the Bikshu Cheshbainis Rabbim, the Ikol Alev that develops with time. That's where the challenge lies. And it's not just the Freiliche Welt, the world that naturally shries Emunah. The Rebbeinu Shalom constantly knocks on our door like the Chafetz Chaim teaches. Koil doidi doifek. The Eibishter constantly is knocking on the door. He wants us to open our heart. The Pischili, open up for me. Don't close the door. The Rebbeinu Shalom is knocking on that door, the door of our heart. He's been banging profusely on that door since Simchas Torah, since Shmini Atzeres. Banging on the door. He's asking, please, Pischili, open up your heart. Unfortunately, there are all too many that are slamming the door. Closing the door, not interested. Does anybody know the secular date of the Yom Kippur War? Well, have you remembered since then? I think you're the only one in the room. We can make a cheshbon, it's probably in October, it's Yom Kippur after all. Everyone and anyone knew the Yom Kippur War had to do with Yom Kippur and not with October 6th. What happened on Simchas Torah was not something that happened on October 7th. The terminology is October 7th. October 7th is an act of slamming the door, the antithesis of Pischili. The Kol Doidi Doifek, the Nisim and the Floys of the Shomrei Shabbos, the Nisim and the Floys of those that were dancing Hakafis at the time. Pischili is to recognize it's not the October 7th massacre. It's a Simchas Torah Shechol Yis B'Shabbos massacre. What's true about the first Ani Mamin? Ani Mamin, Be'amunah Shleima, Sha'abar Yisbarach Shema, Yuberi Manig L'chol Abruim, V'ulevadi Osav Yis V'yasa. What's true about the first Ani Mamin is true about the 12th Ani Mamin. Ani Mamin, Be'amunah Shleima, B'viyas HaMashiach. But it doesn't stop there. Achak Eloi B'chol Yom Sheyavoy. Tzipir Li Yeshua, Achak Eloi, it's an avodah shebelev. The same way the Amunah, the Yediyah, is part of the Ikrim. The Tzipiyah, the Achak Eloi, is part of the Ikrim, because they're all intertwined. The V'yadata Hayoim can't end there, it has to be V'ashevaisa Levavecha. Churban bias, binyan bias, is directly proportional to how far down we bring the V'yadata to the V'ashevaisa. The litmus test of the Amunah in the mind is to the degree and to the extent that the chakaloi mitzapeloi. Recently, someone confided in me. He has a hard time being mitzapeli Yeshua because he realizes good and well that there are many parts of his life, things that he really cares about, that there's going to be no room for them in the world of post-Mashiach era. The world of Hakara Vashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, things that are near and dear to his heart, there just won't be any room for them. I think many, if not most, on a certain level, to a certain degree, are guilty of the same idea. We're just not ready to admit it, not even to ourselves. There's a part of our heart that even after we open that door, Pischili, we need to make room for that Amunah. When there are other things occupying, there's a lot of clutter. Even after the door is open, it's hard to allow it to occupy the heart fully. After all, Tyrus Halev of the Mesilas Yesharim is very deep into the Sefer. It's very high up on the Pinchas Ben Yair's ladder. One day a year, we have a different perspective. There's one day a year where Khal Yisrael collectively mourns as a nation. We analyze Knesset Yisrael's tzaros, the Avelis, the tzaros that went throughout the generations, Churban Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni, Crusades, Inquisition, Holocaust, all of the tzaros of Khal Yisrael collectively as a nation, as throughout the ages, Knesset Yisrael. We're part of that Khal, and all of our little chalakim of our heart, what we're trying to hold on to, they just melt away. When you have the perspective of a big picture of Khal Yisrael tzaros, when you go through the Kinas, thinking about the Tzara, the Shchinta Begelusa, everything becomes so much less significant. There's no more clutter in our hearts today. The avoid is to keep that sentiment. Keep all of those areas melted. Leave the room panui for an amuna that tashivaisa levavecha. There was a woman, an elderly woman, who was nifsaris in the time of Corona. And right before, she shared with her family something that happened when she was a little child, 4 years old. This girl grew up in a small city in Poland, the Rav of which was none other than Reb Meir Shapiro, before he went on to Lublin. Every Leil Shabbos, she would accompany her father to shul. While her father would daven, she would play outside with her friends, and when her father finally came out, she would run over to him. She'd tug at his bekisha and look up and say, "Tata, can I go home with you now?" And her father would lovingly bend down and take her hand and walk home. One Leil Shabbos, she looked up, she tugged, "Tata, can I go home with you now?" But she realized it wasn't her father. It was none other than the Meir Shapiro, the Rav. The Meir Shapiro didn't have any children. He looked at this girl lovingly and he said, "Tochter, both you and I have a tata in Shemayim. Oh, how he longs and yearns to hear that pure request. Tata, is it time to go home with you already?" A request that comes, Michal Kiris Liba, not a single area of clutter. Today, the day when we're sitting in that Beis Ovel, that little girl that walked in during Shiva, where's mommy? When is mommy coming home? All we have to do is answer like a little girl. With the tmimis and the leiv sholem, with absolutely no clutter, the way we feel today. Tata, I just want to go home with you. That's the Hayyim and B'Koilei Sishmo. We should be Zeicha B'Korav to the end of the Eicha. Hashivenu Hashem Elecha V'Nashuva. Chadei Shomeinu Kikedem.